welcome everyone to another 100 Days of No Code workshop. Really good to see you all. We are fortunate enough to have and be joined by Tem, the Notion wizard, and he will be talking us through some tips for how to get started, but also opening it up later on for any questions that you have. Yeah, really looking forward to this session, and I shall pass it over to Tem to take it away.
Totally. Thank you, Max. I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the, 13 folks who joined. We're going to have a good time. I'm going to switch to gallery view. Quick show of hands. Who here is, Luke. I know Luke. We chatted a bit. Who here is knows Notion and has already used it? So 1, 2, 3, 3-ish, 4. Okay, 5. Okay, cool. So this is going to be, Greg has a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So I have a few, Patrick, I recognize Patrick also from Twitter. Tobias. Okay, cool. This is going to be a little bit of a short presentation, and then about Notion in and of itself, and sort of my point of view on the product, and then I'll show how we at Optimization use it, because we do everything in Notion, maybe even to our harm at some cases, but we love the tool. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think I'm okay to do that. Okay, perfect. So one thing I have to be honest with you, January has been rough for me. I moved to Dubai out of all places from California, and I moved before that between Minneapolis and New York. Point is, I haven't gotten as much done in January, which includes this presentation. So I'm actually pulling out something from the past, but I think it will be very relevant to you folks, because this is sort of startup entrepreneurship type conversation as it relates to Notion. How to run your startup on Notion. It's more like for entrepreneurs, as I said. It's just a good title. So a little bit more about myself. I'm originally from Kazakhstan, moved over to New York for college, went to NYU. That's where I started my first tech company as a freshman, called Fit AI. It was poised to change the fitness world. You know, we raised 50,000 of my dad's money, had a little team of 5, and it was going great. Until it wasn't. So the company failed, and it was quite an epic failure, but it was a good introduction to entrepreneurship, to team building, product management, data style, all of it. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of pulling things on charisma, which in my learned opinion is not the best strategy, but it has introduced me to the ecosystem of entrepreneurs and investors in New York. And so that led me to a club called Intervention Society, where I started gaining my events experiences, organizing mentorships, workshops, accelerators, bunch of stuff to do with startups, and got really good network sort of spreading in New York. And that led me to Techstars, and then to a couple other accelerators opportunities. And so in a way that also led to Notion, because I was constantly organizing stuff and learning how to use this productivity tools and automation, and learned, much like yourselves maybe, everything from Google Sheets to Trello to Asana, Sansama, Airtable, Flow, everything, you name it. I think I kind of found my niche more in productivity and ops, as opposed to actually building stuff like Webflow and Bubble, which you guys might be more attuned to. But I did discover, as I mentioned, Notion about 3 years ago, really dove in headfirst with the tool, became an ambassador. And at some point last year, I was finding myself consulting on this kind of, at some point, vague, no code productivity thing. I was getting paid $0 to $18 per hour, and I thought that was pretty nice, but obviously not very nice. So fast forward to February 2020, started Optimization, dropped out of school, lost my immigration status, and then decided to just go all in. And so Optimization, if you guys have seen on Twitter now, it's more of a no-code productivity agency. And so what we do is work with startups and small businesses and help them get on tools like Notion, Airtable, Zapier, and really use them in its highest capacity to simplify operations and increase productivity. Most of our business is services. So we've worked so far in the less than a year, like 25 clients, something like that. But we also have launched a lot of content in the form of newsletter and YouTube. And also, which is a new business, we started a template business. So our first thing is Entrepreneur OS, and I'll talk about that later. But let's get on with today's, and by the way, anytime you want to interrupt or ask another question, feel free. I don't see like any hands or whatever, so just speak your mind. Okay, so 6 things that I want to cover today. A brief overview of what is Notion, what makes it different, why is it good for founders, entrepreneurs, you know, the like of you. What's the secret sauce kind of powering the tool in the community? What's a good time to start using it? And then finally, how it's more like less how to use it, is more like how we use it. I'll actually let you into our workspace and show you around. So what is Notion exactly? By the standard definition, an all-in-one workspace for notes, project management, documents, and collaboration. But in my view, it's the closest equivalent to digital paper. That's the closest you can get to like your messy desk with paper and sticky notes and printouts of spreadsheets in one stack, and like you can arrange it in whatever way you want. Really, I think Notion is can be anything. You start with a blank canvas, with a blank piece of paper, and then at the same time, it really, like, in my opinion, eventually as it becomes more of a product, it can be everything or anything really. This is one of the simplest use cases that you see, is writing a blog post. So at the very fundamental level, it's a great editing tool. It has all the capabilities of, you know, markdown, headings, text, images, etc., like emojis, all of that stuff. And then 30 media types that you can embed, like Figma, Miro, Whimsical, even spreadsheets, Airtable. Like you could, it's like almost like your own little operating system, and where you can do a lot of things. The authorship or the authoring use case is a very common one. A lot of people write wikis, internal documentation, product documentation, as you can see, blog posts here. In our case, to briefly tease what I'll show you later, we use it as a CRM, as a project tracker, as a task manager, as an events calendar, as an actual CMS for our website, and as a meetings notebook, and even as a proposal maker for clients. So, and it has, these are slides a little bit outdated, so it has even evolved since then, but these are, like, as you can see, it just captures a lot of things that generally take a lot of apps that are in separate places, causing a context switching productivity loss. So that actually segues pretty nicely into our second part of this, is the differentiation, or the difference. As I mentioned, or as I alluded to, Notion covers these 4 bases in any organization or productivity system: notes, docs, knowledge bases, tasks, projects, spreadsheets, and databases. And since, by the way, the slides, they've actually consolidated some of this stuff, but these are like the 4 basic overarching categories that replace, as you can see on the right-hand side, tools from Google Docs to Asana and Jira. And I gotta say, it's not necessarily perfect, because a lot of those tools are very verticalized and have like very fine-tuned features that Notion is missing, because their approach is rather optimizing for width and for like a big net to capture a lot of users, different users. If you spend any time on the subreddit on Notion, you'll see people sharing their student planners, some Pokemon card collection. I built like a Hamilton musical wiki. So the breadth of applications is crazy. This is a graphic I like to show that I've made for one blog post, but this is how I feel like, you know, using Notion. You've got all the mess of a bunch of apps like glued together with SAP here, and then on the right hand side, the red pill analogy, you got Notion just replacing everything. So does anyone have any questions or thoughts on that? Because I know it might not be necessarily convincing.
It doesn't look like it. I think we're all good to carry on.
Cool. So why is it perfect for founders slash entrepreneurs slash doers, makers, builders, us, so to say? This is a quote from blog post, but in some, basically, like the software evaluation slash chasing game slash customization is really at the early stages, I think, an impediment or an obstacle. It's more important to actually do whatever you're doing, unless, of course, like setting up software or exploring software is your job, but most likely it's not. So Notion, I think, helps in a way skip a lot of those steps and just get to organizing your basic tables or your blog posts or internal documentation quite easily, and also customizably. In fact, I think the way I look at it is like, this is a picture from the Notion illustrator, Roman, who is an excellent illustrator, but essentially this Notion prevents this, which is like the struggle of trying to keep all the apps together and have them talk to each other with Zapier, and having to always switch from one context to the other and getting constantly distracted. Even though these distractions might not seem like a big deal on a day-to-day basis, but they compound, and the time that you spend not productively really sums up to a lot of hours. I don't know if there's any research, there probably is, but it's not good. I see there's a chat. Oh yeah, there's a chat that I'm not looking at. Let's see. Join the Reddit. Okay, cool. So this is how I felt when I got Notion. Basically, Thanos completing the Infinity Gauntlet, which comprises, in this graphics case, Slack and Google Calendar. But actually, I would say for us, it's Notion, Figma, Slack, Dropbox, and Zapier. So I should add these to this graphic. But that's really why I think in some it's perfect for our use case. Now, why I think is it appealing beyond that? There's a couple of reasons that I really enjoy, and this is more subjective opinion, but I think there's 4 pieces to this. Number one, Notion has a personality. It has even though that might be counterintuitive, it seems like the product doesn't have an opinion, like in the way that you could structure it. But if you think about it, the design is very Apple-esque. The colors, the fonts, the way the product works, it has such an interesting opinion about it. And then I think it sums up in being friendly and kind of intelligent and elegant, but yet humble and welcoming. And I think for me, it's also a little biased because I have met the team and I've talked to the founders and the employees, and this is kind of like what I feel about the company and the product and the community as well. Then, of course, there's the beautiful, powerful, and customizable product, both on web, Mac, Windows, iPhone, iPad, whatever. Of course, it's not the best on all of those platforms, but nevertheless, it's accessible on all of them, which is very, I think, important. Then there's the first principles thinking, which I really enjoy, and it's really difficult to wrap one's head around it. But essentially, the way Notion has presented the problem that they're solving is that, since circa 1800s, we've developed our ways of working in these siloed machines, like typewriters for typing, file cabinets for storage. And so those are just vertically evolved to become, typewriters became Microsoft Docs / Google Docs, file cabinets became Excel, and I guess folders / Excel and Google Sheets. And these are fundamentally separate. What Notion is trying to do is fundamentally bring them together in one medium. And it's a very difficult problem to solve, but I think the way they're thinking about computing and its evolution is very sound, and they have a lot of smart people thinking about it on a daily basis. And they do honor like computing pioneers, Doug Engelbart, Ted Nelson, all of those folks. I have a Notion bag somewhere, and they have, oh, hold on, let me show you. Like they honor Ada Lovelace here, and it's just it's really awesome, like the way they think about even swag and stuff. Anyway, you didn't come here to hear about swag, but they also have a fantastic community of which I'm lucky to be a member with. This is all over the world. Of course, pre-COVID, RIP, in-person events, but hopefully they'll be back. This there's a lot happening. I think like as far as numbers, it's crazy. Like 67,000 Redditors, 27, maybe even more thousand on Facebook, nearly 7,000 on Discord, and 150 sort of Notion ambassadors that then organize more events, share more templates, courses, etc. And I think there's like 100,000 plus or whatever followers on Twitter. So meaning that when you engage with Notion, and if you have anything to build around Notion, there's already a great platform to share your content. Any questions? Quick pause, breather, some water.
Yeah, I think we're all good. This is great. Thanks so much.
For sure. So as far as adoption, there's not much to say. I think just like adding new tools or learning new tools is always painful. It's always difficult. I think hypothetically speaking, there's two good entry points, and this is more for organizations or perhaps can also apply for individuals. But number one, new organization, new job, new project, new whatever, that there's no preconceived notions, no pun intended, but you can just start anew and go with Notion. You don't have to import stuff. You can just start building in Notion. I think that's a perfect state. That's really the best one. The other one, more of a icky slate, I say, is where things are not working well. You probably have felt it at some point in your career, but people just don't necessarily engage with the tool. There's missing deadlines, there's missing checkboxes, there's missing stuff, and it's just like the product is not clicking. It's not delightful to use. It's not useful in people's opinion. So I think in that way you can just kind of root it out and start anew with Notion. It's really difficult to this second state. So I always recommend if you're starting new, that's a good time to give Notion a try. Okay, how to use Notion, more like how I use Notion or how we use Notion at Optimization. So before I do that, any questions, anything that I can address about like Notion overall, the company, the philosophy, the sort of non-tactical topics?
Oh, I have a question. Hi, I'm Rachel. You said that often Notion can be a little less in-depth than like, these systems like Jira and all that. What are sort of like the key limitations that you've experienced yourself or with your clients, like common use cases where they really do need one of the other tools and Notion is not enough in like one solution?
Absolutely. I think to answer your question, when is Notion not enough? It's a very subjective answer. If you, like me browsing the subreddit, I've always noticed a couple topics. Recurring tasks are missing, so people always get annoyed about that, but yet a lot of people find different workarounds, us included. Offline mode is missing. A lot of people are frustrated about that. The API, albeit is in beta, is not publicly accessible, so a lot of people are frustrated that you can't run automations or connected to Zapier. These are pretty heavyweight ones. As far as smaller ones, it's more like can't email to cards, or you can't group records like you do in Airtable, or like Airtable has these lots of these nifty small features like toggle all properties or not, or kind of sort them alphabetically. All of these small, like very verticalized database features are not present in Notion. Any big ones? Any other big ones? Slack integration sucks. I think that's it mostly. Yeah, those are pretty big ones though.
Okay. Do you find, just as a follow-up question, that that clients like often do pair Notion with like at least one or a couple of tools that you find that it often replaces or can?
Yeah. I mean, for a while, we just got access to the API beta. So we've been on Airtable actually for a lot of our automated database needs. So like email subscribers, automated purchases, a lot of that was going to Airtable, and that was really annoying. But now that we got that access and we can implement it on the client's behalf, that's saving a lot of time. Other use cases, sometimes it's overwhelming to move a lot of things to Notion and really wrap your head around it. So people I've seen kind of keep meeting notes and agendas and wiki on Notion, but run project management still in Trello or Asana, just because it's more familiar. One other thing is the storage capabilities are like, okay, they're there, but they're not the best. That's why I use Dropbox, and a lot of clients use Google Drive.
Awesome, thanks.
We've got a question from Bram, just around what would you say the free projects would be to do as a new user that sort of increasingly get harder to test your skills in Notion and sort of get better in it. Is there any like projects you'd recommend like doing that incrementally get harder as you begin in your Notion journey?
It's an interesting question. I wouldn't say it's like it gets harder. It's more like the product just offers so much, and as you go through it, as you implement it, the biggest mental model that I would suggest is to not use the tool for the tool, unless you want to become a consultant like myself or work with consultants or whatever. It's more like solve the problems that you experience right now. Like you need to organize a task list, then you go and build a table and add properties and sorts and filters and all of that, and then you solve your problem and you learn how tables work in Notion. Then you need to organize projects and connect them to tasks. Then you do that. And so that's the best way to learn actually any tool, especially Zapier. I've noticed a lot of people like asking like, how do I use Zapier? It's just like figure out what you need to automate and then do it. And that's how you learn. So this is the same thing with Notion. What's interesting about Notion, particularly that are not other tools, is like it has so many interesting like nooks and crannies. Like one thing that I've discovered recently and started using it a lot, something that's like a hack called global blocks. It's where so everything in Notion is a block. So what you can do with global blocks is, let's say, write a piece of text and then extract the URL, like remove a couple characters, paste it somewhere else, and then have them sync. So if you write a piece of text in one place, it will update in the other. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. But I really did not find a use case until I started hosting my website on Notion, until I found a couple of things that I could run stand-ups with this. So point is, solve your problems incrementally, and that's how you will eventually learn the product. I think it's better to do that than like try to learn everything in one go and probably forget it.
That's awesome. And Bram, feel free to come off mute if you have an extension to that question that you'd like Tem to go through. But if not, I think we're all good to continue.
Perfect. So I'm going to transition into Notion and going to open up my space. So what I'm going to do first of all is set my zoom level. So right now, usually the way I use Notion is I hide the sidebar and I use it just like as a full screen browser. And I click around links as if I'm using a browser. And whenever I need to find something that's not immediately accessible, I use Command P to search my entire workspace. So if people have used Superhuman or Slack, Command P is the equivalent to Command K, which I believe now works. Yeah, Command K now works in Notion. And I'm also gonna use a keycaster visualization so that you guys can see that I do use a lot of screenshots here. Oh, not screenshots, sorry, keybinds. So let's change the zoom level to probably 100. Is that visible for people decently enough?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, perfect. So what you're seeing right in front of you, and mind the speed, by the way, because I'm screen sharing, it's always having some difficulty. It's probably my computer more so than Notion. But so what you're finding here is essentially a today page that I've designed for myself. And the purpose of the today page is to capture everything that's relevant to today. And in my case, this is a task list that is basically captures everything from complete tasks that I've marked as complete today, edited tasks that I've edited today, tasks that are due today, and also a bunch of tasks, as you can see, that are overdue. That's the left-hand side. Then on the right-hand side, we've got a calendar, which essentially pulls all my meetings that I have today, which I don't, thankfully. There I would be able to see meeting notes. Then below that, I have a couple links to my workspace, and these are respective dashboards for the function of the company. So this is internal ops, services, products, sales, marketing, and then the back end is something I'll explore in a bit, but that's like hosts every database and every page. Beyond that, I'll actually breeze through and kind of go back to the back end and explain how that works fundamentally. But beyond that, I have a notebook here where I just jot down quick notes. I have a little mood tracker that I've designed myself where I can add an energy level and also a few feelings tags. Then below that, I have a connection to readwise.io, which essentially saves highlights from Kindle and tweets, and I think a bunch of other stuff like Medium highlights. So this is everything that I've added or highlighted today. Then I've got resources, which is something that I add manually. So like websites or snippets of text or whatever, I add that to this piece, usually capturing with the Notion web clipper. Then I've got a brief snapshot of sales, which all I really care about sales is the pipeline. So this is projects database that's split on a board by the stage of conversation that I am in with the client. And so this summary is customizable, but here it's summarizing like the estimated dollar value of the projects. And below that, we have a brief snapshot of marketing. So in my case, I care about the editorial or the marketing items that I'm currently working on. So for me, that's basically these things, and a couple links as well. So this goes to my website, this goes to blog posts, and this goes to templates. And then below that, I have the same records, but visualized as a timeline view. So that's pretty cool. I can just keep track of all the timeline of these projects, but on the timeline visually. And then finally, I have a couple recurring tweets that I have saved here. So what's cool about this is just like every piece here is a block, and you can move it around. You can, like, let's say, get rid of this column. It's kind of hard with zoom on, but I can, for example, get rid of this column and kind of see this in a bigger view. If I want to go full screen, I can click here and see this whole thing full screen. I can even toggle like different views. Maybe I can want to see it on a quarterly level and kind of take a zoom out. It's really, this is one of the databases view called timeline view. So it's very customizable. But I'm not going to bother to return it. But so this is all my today related dashboard. So I have this for yesterday, tomorrow, week, month, quarter, year, and then a couple other pages that have tasks that are blocked, tasks that are backlogged, and tasks that are recurring. Since we talked about recurring, the only way I sort of hack around this is I just add a tag to a task and call it recurring. So once that loads, you'll just see a small list of tasks and the associated function. So actually, hold on, this is broken. So this has broken because I had a filter, like I changed a property somewhere. So the way I would return this to normal, I would actually open the filter panel and add filter, just like you do in Airtable, and add a tag and say this tag must contain recurring. Okay, so now that this has been applied, this will take a bit to refresh, and then you'll see, I think only 5 or so, 6 tasks that are actually recurring. So just like filters, sorts, and property toggles, this works in Airtable. It works in Notion just as it does in Airtable. Okay, so this was a dashboard that you just saw. Let me explain how it works, like fundamentally speaking. So fundamentally speaking, we have a backend, just like any software product. And this backend essentially comprises of a bunch of databases. So all of the pages you see here are databases. Essentially, think of this as Airtable bases or spreadsheets or Excel or Google Sheets. So if I open any individual one, you'll see probably some kind of default view, something large and not very actionable and pretty overwhelming, actually. I should have not opened tasks because that's our biggest database, but once it loads, you'll see it's just a good old spreadsheet with a bunch of properties. Oh my, the speed it's really, yeah. So as you can see, it's just a spreadsheet with nearly 2,000 records, and everything is toggled on here. So every property, and there's a bunch, I think there's like 40 properties. And so all of this is like basically what you'd expect, like ownership, checkbox for completion, these little connections to different projects, to different marketing initiatives, to functions, to other areas of the workspace. And then there's a bunch of automated fields. So like statuses, then there is roll-ups on like who's a client, then there is automatic last edited dates, created by, all of this good stuff. Point is, it's not very fun to look at this or work with this. What you have seen on my dashboard is a view of tasks that's been extensively filtered. So let me go back to that and show you the filters. They're kind of ridiculous, frankly. It took me a long time to figure this out. But essentially, I want a view of tasks that obviously contains my ownership. It's not a subtask. It's not a marketing task. It's not a product task. I have a different view of these. It's something that where there's no dependencies and it's due today. It's not a backlog or it's due today. Point is, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this filter essentially ensures that in front of me on this day today, I see the 14 relevant tasks of the nearly 2,000 that you saw in the other spreadsheet. So this core concept of Notion, sort of opening a relevant portal to your data, is one of the best features. And of course, you can do this in Airtable, but the fact that you can place this on a dashboard side by side, calendar and notes and other links, is one of the best features about Notion. I'm going to pause here and see how people are feeling. I hope no heads have exploded so far. I don't see, actually.
Hi, Tim. This is Yolanda.
Hello. Hi. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was trying to develop a template for an agile development team and was having like the hardest time with the backlog database, which essentially I guess would be task in this scenario, and bringing that down into like a Kanban board and making sure that once they update the Kanban board that it's actually updating the main database. Can you speak to that, how you did that? I'm not sure if I saw a Kanban board on this dashboard, but.
Totally. So as far as Kanban boards and spreadsheets and timeline views and all of that, it's actually just a view of the data. So if we click add a view or the ellipses, you'll see the different ways you can visualize the data. So obviously we got table, Kanban view, timeline view that I showed you, calendar, just a list, and a gallery view. So what you want to do in this case is to open the database, so the original database, let's say whatever it is. It can be, by the way, any shape or form. It could be a spreadsheet or a Kanban or whatever. And then what you're going to do is grab the link, copy link right here. And then whatever page it is, let's actually start a new page here in our workspace. Whatever page it is, you have to just paste the link and then create a linked database. So that effectively creates a portal to that data that you can edit, adjust, manipulate, and the changes will propagate to the original database.
Okay. And then just change it to a Kanban board here. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Boom. And then you know, you configure your properties, like, you know, group by the appropriate property, and then like filter and sort and all of those good stuff, good things.
All right. Thank you, Tim.
No problem.
Just had a quick question from Andrew on, is the calendar linked to an external calendar, or is it completely within Notion? I'm assuming just within Notion, but just in case.
Usually for 99% of Notion users, it's just a calendar siloed on its own. But since we have a beta access to the API, we actually do pull events and updates from Google Calendar, which has been the best thing ever. But in prior times, I would always create the calendar entries myself. But now the caveman days are over for me, not for everyone else. But there's a core thing here. The reason I did not mind the creation of these like extra things is because Notion has a really great, let's call it internal semi-automation. So let me explain here. On each of these things, you've seen there are filters. So in the case of calendar, the filter is very rudimentary. It's basically saying the date is today, the participant is me, and then the primary category of this calendar record is a meeting. So if I click new right here, it will actually pre-fill these details. So as you can see, I didn't have to fill that out. So that's nice. Then on top of that, below here, I have many templates, all kinds of different templates. And to me, I signal, you know, if the icon is a circle, what is a speech bubble, it's a meeting. If it's a calendar, it's a calendar event. If it's a circle and checkbox, it's a milestone. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. But point is, I have these templates pre-built for me. So if I have a sales meeting, the discovery meeting, I can click new discovery. And what you'll see is that the secondary tag sales and the function tag sales has been automatically assigned. So now I didn't have to fill that out. The only thing I have to add is the relevant project. So beyond that, the page contents are also auto-filled for me. So my sales meetings are very standard. So I have the, let's say 8 or whatever prompts here that I pull up in front of me. So this, what I call, is Notion semi-automation, that I don't necessarily have to start a new Google Doc and then just don't know where it is, what it is. Like all of this is a lot of the relations and the properties already pre-filled for me. The same, okay, I'm gonna stop here. That's a big concept. Yeah, gonna stop here.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Yeah.
Cool. So then I was gonna carry this forward and say that I can then, the way I took that task list and embedded it to make a board view, I actually have a list view that's filtered to be related to this calendar entry. So that's like inception type linking, where now the new task that I create here is actually linked to that calendar item here. So meaning that I can just create it without kind of peace in mind, and I can just title it and you know, assign the due date, and I don't have to worry to trace it back where it came from. I already know that it came from this calendar item, and it's in fact a sales task because it was generated in a sales meeting. I could change this, but this saves a lot of time, the semi-automation stuff. And let me actually get rid of this record. Okay, so we covered the backend, and I gave you a peek into my personal dashboard. Now, on a business level, like I actually did a lot of reconstruction when I had my teammate join, but what I've instituted is sort of this, if people know Para, this modification on areas. So for me, it's functions. So functions of the company, as I alluded to earlier, everything from internal stuff to marketing, services, sales, whatever. And so the way I set them up is that they're actually a database of its own, a database that's kind of like this essentially this brain, spider, octopus thing, whatever, that's connected to all of the other databases. So projects, tasks, calendar items, decisions, notebook items, resources, topic, like everything essentially. And so then what I do is create a dashboard to visualize all of this stuff. So if we go to, let's say, what's a good one? Sales, let's say. I'm going to open that, or let's actually open marketing. So if I open marketing, then what I have is parts of these databases visualized for me. So we have objectives and key results at the very top under the performance section. Then we've got the timeline of current editorial items that you've seen in my dashboard, but that's expanded here. Then we've got any projects with marketing. I was working on this video series called Pimp My Notion, but it's kind of stalled, but maybe coming back soon. And then there's the notebook area that's filtered for particularly the marketing department. So, and then there's some other stuff, I guess, editorial in the board view, and I think that's it. Oh, and there's also Twitter. Sometimes I don't scroll all the way down, but there's basically a couple other things. This actually is a page view. This is like every post I shared, I keep track of. So I've shared most of my stuff on Twitter, then on Reddit and Facebook, and then that's it. So this is the marketing dashboard, and every functional dashboard is a little bit different, but the main sort of heavyweight here is this content calendar, which I usually look at a month level or a quarterly level. And so I can plan out, as you can see, we have a bunch of stuff coming, like Life OS, Angel OS, Venture OS, like bunch of stuff. And if I click load more, you'll see the rest of this. So this is kind of helpful for me to plan out in a timeline view, like all the content that we're gonna be churning out. So that is the marketing dashboard. And then beyond that, I also have a couple pages here, like as it relates to marketing, I have a task manager. So all of these tasks split in this corresponding category are all marketing related. And as you can see, in some cases, I choose to add a view. So for time differentiation by quarter, month, week, year, I add a view. But for something like a fundamental property difference, like the task being blocked, or it being a backlog item, or it being a recurring item, I actually go ahead and add it into a separate section. And that's all up to one's personal preference. I just choose this. You can choose whatever. Whatever suits you, whatever works for you. Yeah. So that concept of a functional dashboard then applies for all the other functions, but for the main view is a little bit different. Like for example, in services, if I type in services, I'll find that. Again, the speed is much faster usually when I'm not screen sharing, but in services, instead of that editorial view, what you see instead is all the active projects that we have and their respective timelines, and for mostly Valentine, but some of them I do actually still, and that's the main thing for services. The rest is the same really, and we're going to play around with it, but I'm probably going to embed some metrics at the very top. And then sales is also pretty much the same, but there's a little bit of a difference that the sales pipeline is the thing front and center that I see. Any questions on this dashboarding concept?
Nope, I don't think so.
Cool. One thing that might stand out for you is sort of this links to other spaces. So what I try to do as far as organization is ensure that when it comes to Dropbox, Figma, Slack, and Zapier, it's all consistent. So there's a sales folder that has all the relevant things. Then there is the internal folder, an internal channel as well. And all of these things are related as much as possible. And then one thing, what else did I want to show? So when it comes to projects, let me go back to services. When it comes to projects, they in and of themselves also have a dashboard that looks something like, let's open this project. So this has its own dashboard, and for most Notion users, they would have the content down here. The reason I have this empty is because, and I'll show you, Notion is also my website. So I don't like most of some information public. So that's why for client projects, we have a separate dashboard that we actually share with the client. And we've played around with these things, but realized that it's best to do a simple dashboard. So we have a very simple tasks panel, meetings panel, quick entry / notebook, and then a bunch of other links, including the same Dropbox, Slack, and meeting booking links. So I think at this point, Sam, I've shown. Oh,
can I ask a quick question about this? I believe in order to get the clients access to the individual blocks in these databases, you would have to give them access to the original database. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's a hairy issue that
right.
I don't like to talk about. But
yeah, okay. I was wondering if you had solved that.
No, I have not. I have not solved it because it's right now there's no filtered permissions. And by the way, I think was it Yolanda? No, I don't remember who asked that question, but it's a big one. You can't filter permissions like in bulk. All you can do is like open a specific record and then restrict its sharing. Right now, you can't do it for a lot of people. So what Luke is saying is that when I give access to, let's say in this case, Sarah, to my task database, in theory and in practice, she can see all of the 2,000 tasks. What I've noticed in practice is that clients don't care. Obviously, they have their own businesses, so they honestly don't bother to look. But if some people care or have something to protect, then that's not an ideal approach. Now, the one hack that we've implemented that is for sensitive items only is a private database. So the way we create this private database is through a couple combinations of linked blocks, but point is we create this database that's only specific to the client, meaning that if somebody else would open this page, they actually wouldn't see this section. It would just be gone. And that's because this is actually hosted on a private page to which only Sarah and myself have access. So that's a kind of current workaround around this. And I don't like it, but it's okay.
Epic. Thanks for sharing that. And we just got one from Priyanka. How did you get the Dropbox icon to look that way? I didn't notice the Dropbox item, but yeah. Oh, is it down there?
Good question. I think I just found it somewhere on the internet. Dropbox SVG. I can give it to you. I just found it somewhere on the internet.
Sorry, Tim. Are they like embedded links or like because they?
Oh no. So this is a type of block called a callout block, and I just actually added a link to it. Just hyperlinked it.
Oh, that's genius. Okay, well done.
No worries.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I had a project. I was working on a project where I wanted to create like a button that that opens a page that pre-populates a form. Is that something you've done before?
Form. Which software for the form are you using?
Oh, no, in Notion, like to create create a page that goes into a table rather.
Oh. Yeah, right now there's no native functions, but there's a couple I guess products that people build, or one really dominant one called chilipepper.io. That's actually a form builder that connects to Notion tables. And there's one more called what is it called? I don't know if it's live, but nono.so maybe. Basically only third parties that let you collect form info into Notion. However, since they're rolling out the API, a bunch of folks like Dropbox, Jotform, Paperform, whatever, are now enabling that connectivity pretty soon.
How about if you're gonna do like create a button in Notion that opens up a page that you pre-populate that goes into a table?
As far as I know, like in Notion, that's not possible. But if you host a website with super.so, then you can do it. But
Oh,
of course, that has to be a website, not an actual notion.so page.
oh, okay, okay. All right.
Yeah. Anything else, Max? Or I can...
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're good.
Totally. The last thing I want to share, since we have spoken about websites here and there, is actually how I have my website organized. So it's hosted on the marketing page in the page called websites, which essentially is a dashboard for all things the website. And most of the content is right here in this page. And some of you might have browsed optimization.com, but just as you see it in Notion, it renders ideally or perfectly with a third-party tool called super.so. And it really does look exactly the same as Super does, as Notion does, except that users cannot add views, filters, or search stuff. That's limited to me, of course. And even all the email collection and whatnot works. So this is essentially, Notion is a great CMS tool for websites as well. The one limitation that I personally don't like is when I want to portray, or not even portray, but show my work. So the projects, there's no way to link an external database and have it viewable here yet. So what I have to do as a hack is actually take my real projects database and put it here and filter it accordingly. So if I open optimization.com, people don't really realize that this is the actual database, but it doesn't really matter. As of now, for me, it's okay because I never navigate to the original database. I'm always in different views, but that's kind of a small drawback that I find annoying. And then one last thing about websites, there's a specific workflow that I compose editorial items, and then I drag them over, or I move them over to the writing databases right here. So the way Super set up is like you have to have these databases present on the actual page for them to be able to open, for visitors to be able to open them. So yeah, that's the way the website is set up. There's probably a lot of ways, a lot of things to discuss about Notion websites, but I think we're coming up at time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Just last thing, I guess I did allude to this whole global blocks thing, the advanced feature. I just want to show you one case where it might be useful. So obviously on this landing page, you see a lot of text, right? For anything from headers to captions to subtitles to etc. The way I composed this copy and the way it kind of made sense as like a coherent flow of information, I've actually so let's open this page, right hand side, and then this page, left hand side. So this is dark mode for some reason. Let me switch. So what I actually have here is every piece of text that you see on the website, but all in one document. And that's handy for me to see, to like create coherency, or I don't know if that's word, coherence, sorry. And because these are linked blocks, if I change something here, as you can see, it changes on the website simultaneously. So that's a little nice little thing. By no means required, but it's nice to have. And on that end, on that note, if anyone has any other questions about Notion, I'm going to switch to my final portion of the presentation.
Tim, I have one more question. This is Yolanda again.
Hi.
You only have 7 videos on your YouTube. And
you are
a master. Are you planning on like doing any other like public facing tutorials or?
Yeah, a lot more. I said January's been rough on me. I probably need to hire more people, but I just like been really figuring out the long-term strategy and kind of agonizing about that, like what I want the company to be. So once I have that squared away, after we publish an annual review, then more content. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for encouraging me.
Thank you.
I have a question too, Tim. I was wondering, ever since Janelle Loy has published her newsletter OS, there have been OS products popping up everywhere, and you've yourself dabbled in a couple of them as well. And I was wondering, what's your take on this sort of premium take on a Notion template?
I will answer that once I grab a charger. Hold on.
Don't hold your breath, look.
Yeah.
I was going to say that we all disappear. He comes back confused.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back. Well, to answer your question, Luke, one of our community members, Ben Smith, has joked that he's going to make a Notion template for finding help, and he's going to call it SOSOS, which is pretty funny. But really, I don't know. I haven't formed a strong opinion around that. I know for myself that I have a specific strategy of these premium templates, and I know that they do sell.
Yeah.
I don't know. For data's sake, I think we sold about 150 units, which is okay. I think Janelle sold a lot more, and that's great for her. I know that others have great template download numbers as well, and I think it makes sense as a product right now, but I think eventually the thing about, because Notion is growing and there's a lot of purchases, but what I've really found out in truth that people, I don't think use it. I think they buy it, but I don't think they use it because it's difficult. Like, it's almost like you're taking a thing and like taking someone's brain and trying to figure out how it works. And it's really difficult. And I think the activation and retention statistics are probably really bad, but nobody knows because we have no data. So I think the like, yes, I do want to release a couple more OSs, and I have a very specific reason why. Well, in short, really, I have great relationships with a few angels and a few VCs and a lot of startups, and I just want to build those because I think they might be very useful. I think where really the sort of financial, well, more like the customer value and the financial value is going to come from courses and education, because Notion is just this product that is better learned than installed and purchased for the majority of the people. That's what my opinion is. I think in the short term, as I said, I'm going to focus on some of these OSs, but in the long term, content, education, courses, communities, I think will win.
Yeah. I have a couple of more questions, but I don't know how everyone's time is, and if anyone else would like to ask some questions.
I'll go after you, Luke. You go.
Sure. So, Tim, also, if you had to start again without a brand today, how would you go about becoming a Notion wizard all over again?
I think as far as the thing about like wizardy, first of all, I prefer magician, by the way, Matt.
Magician. Okay, wizard. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Tim. I'm sorry.
The thing is, it's like when I learned Notion, I like followed my own advice and I solved my own problems. And like I had a event org that I had like 15 events with food and speaker items and all of that. So I learned it by using it and needing it. So that's what my best advice is. But if I were to start today, I think the best way is to join an early stage startup or early stage organization or something that moves very fast and there's a lot of change. And if they're not on Notion, you make your case and you put them on Notion, like what's his name, Rishi did for On Deck. And like, I think if you're able to convince people, first of all, you will need to know the product to be able to convince them. And then like organizing an early stage startups data, which is a lot and different and always changing, I think is the best exercise. In the same fashion, you can do it as a freelancer, as a consultant who, you know, can push oneself to like just do a lot of work and different work. And yeah, that's my best take. It's not ideal, but something.
Great. So my final question, of course, the API has been hyped up for a really long time. Finally, super glad it's finally coming around somewhere later this year in fall, presumably. I'm really curious how you think the Notion landscape will change once this API comes out.
I think, so from what I know about the API, as far as the beta, everyone that joins has technical capability, so developers and whatnot, and a lot of them are using it for their internal use cases, so they're in companies. There's some product-driven folks, including myself, and I think the really key will be the Zapier integration / Parabola or whatever, Integromat and Automate.io and Tray and whatever. Once that opens, it's going to be, I think Notion is going to become more dominant than in comparison to Airtable and other players, because this piece of like automatically bringing in data is crucial. And once they solve it, and if they solve it correctly, where you can not only populate databases, but also page contents, I just, wow, like I think they're going to be on, like right now, I don't think Notion is stoppable. I think the only thing that might stop them is an Apple acquisition for like 20+ billion dollars. But I think they're on a very, very interesting trajectory. I wish I owned some equity, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think they're going to continue to dominate and things are going to be really, really good. As far as how it impacts users, I think the Zapier integrations and the no-code stuff is going to be really helpful, and people are just going to be designing these, I think, operating systems for themselves, and it's going to be great all in all for productivity. That's all I can say. I haven't really thought about it, but thanks for asking something that I should think about.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to pick your brain.
Totally.
Okay, Tim, I have a quick question. So I've made Notion databases and stuff, or workspaces for some clients, and our own business runs on it too. But what I find is I make it and it's amazing, everything's working brilliantly, and then I sort of turn my attention on another project, and I kind of like lose track of where my state of mind was when I make it, because Notion is so like subjective, I find, and you know, you could solve problems in different ways or hack them or whatever. How do you sort of go back on projects that or workspaces you've set out and still kind of find your thought thread? And then how often do you review them? And how are you preparing for somebody else to come into the company to design Notion spaces? Because at the moment, I'm the only one and it's too much work. So I can't do anything else. I'm always fixing problems. And I don't know how to prepare for someone new.
Yeah, that's a tough one. There's the internal part, and then there's the client-facing part, right? Internal, as you've noticed, I try to template. Like each function looks the same, more or less. Each project looks the same, more or less, and so that I have familiarity with. I know exactly where I can find the task manager or the project space, and so it's familiar. Even for some cases, what I do when I design a new template, even if it's a past project, I erase the dashboard and then I reapply it so that it looks the same. That's internal part. Client facing is really difficult. There's no easy answer beyond documentation that you can just explain how everything works. That's if you're doing very different workspaces. What we actually do is very similar. So we take Entrepreneur OS or the upcoming Venture OS and Startup OS and actually apply that to the company and then do certain modifications. In a lot of cases, people don't like the project database. I don't know why. They like to directly deal with companies, whether there's portfolio, pipeline, whatever. So we kind of just remember that, take note of that, and that's the best we can do at the moment. As far as training a new person joining your team, no easy way as well with Valentin when he joined now 2 or 3 months ago. I just sort of shown everything that I've built and he internalized it, and that's, yeah, it took a while, but I'm lucky that he's a very fast learner. So I think if you get someone that's like on their toes and just like able to learn fast, that's probably the best. Just because the nature of work changes fast, and also Notion as a product can be always remolded and changed, and like someone who can learn fast is probably the best.
And would you advise someone who's experienced in Notion, or are you okay, because Notion is still quite a new thing, or are you okay with them learning on the job or teaching them? Oh, that scares me.
I think, yeah, well, depends on you. Like if you're willing to educate them and you feel confident in your abilities, then you should, and they're willing to learn. I think that's a great combo. But when I was recruiting, I did wanted folks to have like a rudimentary or like good understanding of the product. So I basically asked like, hey, can you send me a public Notion thing that you built? And when they send something and they have something interesting, I'd be like, okay, let's have a conversation, because I just didn't have time to train. But then once I onboarded Valentin, actually I worked with 4 different subcontractors. He was just the one who was like very active, kind of jumping out, tackling projects, being very self-sufficient. Then there's been more training that kind of happened offhand. It wasn't like scheduled at all, but I just got lucky with him joining.
Brilliant, thank you.
Totally.
Thanks for really great question. Cool. I think we'll wrap up here because I know we've gone over a little bit, but I appreciate you sparing the extra time as well, Tim. That's amazing. So yeah, just wondered.
I have a small conclusion, if you don't mind.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd love. Yeah, if you've got any final words, please take it away.
My final word is the URL, optimization.com. No, just kidding. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was, I know this is dense. There's a lot of content, and just Notion can be difficult, but hope this was useful. I really am very long on the company. I believe in the company. As far as optimization, I think the past year we've just been throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so far, services and templates stuck. But moving forward, I just want to talk a little bit. So Entrepreneur OS, you might have seen, folks, but basically it's like all of what you've seen in my workspace, but essentially templated for people to duplicate and install on their own. As I mentioned in my conversation with Luke, it's not the best, I think, product for retention or activation, but it has sold well. I think it brought in like maybe 15 or 16K in revenue. So that could be life-changing for a lot of people, and it's nice for us. But I think moving forward, I want to build more products: Entrepreneur OS, Angel Investor OS, Venture OS, Startup OS, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then move on to towards education and content. And I am hiring, kind of loose hiring. As I said, with Valentin, it was always kind of just looking around, seeing what people have, having active conversation. And if for any of you 8 people that are remaining, like Notion strikes a chord, this organization, hyper ADD productivity stuff sounds cool, message me on Twitter. Let's have a conversation. And I'd love to keep in touch with all of you. I am in the Slack space. Sorry, Max, I don't check it, but I am there also. But I'd prefer Twitter, frankly. Anyway, that I believe is it. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.
Yeah, cheers, Tim. Yeah, that was amazing. Thanks so much. And just for next steps, we're going to share this presentation, if that's all right, with the whole of our network, on our newsletter and all that stuff on Sunday, so people can catch it if they couldn't make it. So thanks again, everyone, for coming. Thanks, of course, Tem, and hopefully see you on Twitter or Slack somewhere. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tem.
Bye. Bye. Have a good night, everyone.